We're halfway through Joe Biden's term, and it's time to take a break on this President's Day for some historical perspective. But first, do you consider President's Day to be one of our nation's most important holidays, least important holidays, or somewhere in between? Only 20% of American adults say it's one of the most important holidays, and most, 48%, say it's somewhere in between. That makes it basically one of the bottom tier holidays, since Americans usually rate Christmas and July 4th higher, with numbers in the upper 50s saying it's one of the most important holidays. It sits squarely between its two closest neighbors, with 34% most recently saying Martin Luther King Day is one of our most important holidays, and only 10% saying Valentine's Day is. Easter, coming up soon, will most likely still be in the high 30s this year. So here's the real meat of this question set. We pitted Joe Biden against the four other most recent U.S. presidents. The results were not good for him, which is incredible if you recall that he got the most votes of any president in U.S. history by a massive margin. Which one of the five most recent presidents has been the best president? Donald Trump wins with 36%, and Obama comes in second at 30%. Now, before you say that Trump is just winning because of recency, notice that only 8% say Joe Biden, even less than George W. Bush, who left office with the lowest job approval ratings in the history of our polling. Bill Clinton only pulls the same 8% that Biden got. And also note here that the total of Republican presidents almost exactly matches the total for Democrat presidents. Donald Trump wins among both men and women, though by a lesser margin among women. And he ties or beats Obama among every age bracket as well. Biden doesn't get higher than 9% among any of those demographics. Here are the results by race. Trump blows everyone away among white adults, ties Obama among Hispanics, but look at the black column. Obama wins by a lot, but it's just 55% to 21%. And Bill Clinton, once referred to as the first black president, only gets 6%. Now let's look at just responses for Republicans. Trump takes home 62% of the Republican vote, which, as we will see, is way more than Obama among Democrats. But I thought it was fascinating that Bush is still getting 16%, about the same that Biden currently gets among Democrats. Perhaps this gives you a feel for how much of the current Republican population are neocons, or at least anti-mean tweet Republicans. Obama gets 9% of Republican support, Bill Clinton gets 4%, and Biden 2%. Now remember those numbers for a second. Obama did worse among Democrats than I expected, and Biden did better, to be honest, about as good as Bush currently does with Republicans. But here's the incongruity. Even though only 17% of Democrats say Biden was the best recent president, he still has a Democrat approval rating in the upper 70s as of today. 11% of Democrats say Trump was the best recent president, almost as much as Bill Clinton, and earning almost 3 times the crossover as Bush. Also, compare that 11% to the only 2% of Republicans that say Biden is the best recent president. Now, with all that in mind, look again at these numbers and try to reconcile them with the fact that Biden, by a mile, got more votes than any president in U.S. history. 39% of independents say that Trump was the best recent president, 12% more than do Obama, and only 5% of independents say Biden. Only 7% say Bill Clinton was the best president, even though many would argue that he governed as the most centrist on this list. Now, which of the most recent presidents was the worst? Recall that Trump beat Obama as the best president by 36% to 30%, but he wins here too, beating Biden, not Obama, by 41% to 39%. Now, you're starting to see the challenge that Trump might face in his 2024 run, and Biden as well for that matter. Biden is doing slightly better here than Trump, but only 8% of Americans say Biden was the best president compared to Trump's 36%. Some might think that it would make 2024 unwinnable for Biden, but keep in mind that Biden's voters really don't need him to be the best president to vote for him. Despite almost tying Trump as the worst president, he still has a Democrat job approval, like I said, in the high 70s, and he just beat Trump for the first time in 2 years in a hypothetical 2024 rematch. And again, he miraculously earned the most votes in history. George W. Bush is probably the biggest winner here. Keep in mind, of anyone on this list, he ended office with the lowest job approval ratings. In fact, due to how polarized everything is right now, it looks like Trump and Biden have pretty much absolved everyone else of their past sins. Who's giving Trump his worst numbers? They're only 2 points worse with women than men, and actually by far the highest among 65 and older Americans. There's something specifically about the older age group that is causing them to be polarized by Biden and Trump. Black Americans rate Trump the worst, but he beats Biden as the worst there by only a 25-point margin, incredibly. Here are the party numbers. 70% of Democrats rate Trump the worst, and a fair amount, 15%, rate Biden the worst. But look at the rest. George W. Bush only gets 5% among Democrats. And I clearly remember how vilified he was back then. Perhaps his anti-Trump stance has repaired his image with him, or perhaps they just have a new current thing to hate. 13% of Republicans rate Trump the worst, which is actually higher than Obama. That was probably the biggest surprise here for me. Biden, at 64%, is probably pulling away most of the Obama hatred. And among independents, Biden beats Trump as the worst by 4 points, and nobody else comes close. Okay, here's one more way of looking at these numbers. Something pretty special that I don't think you're going to see anywhere else. This is everybody's best rating divided by their worst rating for a relativistic look at everybody's current opinions about the past presidents. Among all adults, Obama is just crushing it, and Joe Biden is by far the worst. And even though Trump wins the most best ratings, it's outdone by how much hatred he's garnered, putting him in a far worse spot than Bush or Clinton overall. By party, nobody is loved more than Obama among Democrats. And even among Republicans, Bush is doing better now than Trump is. But Trump is doing more than 4 times better among Republicans than Biden is doing among Democrats. And Biden is hated slightly more among Republicans even than Trump is among Democrats, if that can be believed. Among independents, however, Trump is doing over 10 times better than Biden. So where is all this going? Well, we're still most likely headed for a Biden-Trump rematch. And although we have a long way to go, and although we also know that the ultimate election results will be determined by a whole slew of things, not least of which is the Democrats' miraculous turnout machine, here are some important facts. Trump is considered by most to be the best president, but he's also the worst. And Biden, over the last 2 years, has now convinced America he's almost as bad as Trump. Did you find this interesting? If so, please follow us on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube or Rumble, and leave a like on our video. We have a lot of great things coming this week, including American voters' stances on Ukraine, how Nikki Haley, unencumbered by the hatred generated by Trump, would now do against Biden, some troubling new numbers about Taiwan, and for the first time in polling, a definitive answer to the question, is it okay to be white? Thanks for watching.